to this.
Despite exercising 3 or 4 hours every single day and following the food pyramid to the letter, I gained a lot of weight and developed something called metabolic syndrome.
Ketosis to the rescue. If you stop eating glucose for about 10 to 12 hours, your glucose stores will deplete, and your body will start breaking down fat so that the liver can produce something called ketone bodies. Ketone bodies produce energy for your cells through similar pathways as glucose, but are much more stable, efficient, and don't cause complications like we just talked about. You may have heard of this ketosis state referred to as starvation mode in school, but this by no means suggests that you are about to starve. I particularly dislike this term because it suggests that glucose, carbohydrates, is our body's primary fuel source, when in fact it is possible to live entirely without carbohydrates.
Humans have absolutely no requirement for carbohydrate. Not 1 gram do we require. We have this fabulous liver that produces as much glucose as you require.
Case in point, a 456-pound, 27-year-old man in Scotland fasted for an incredible 382 days, consuming only water and vitamin supplements. He lost 276 pounds and completed the fast with no ill effects. He was technically in starvation mode this entire time, and his body was using his stored body fat for energy. Quick note, ketosis and diabetic ketoacidosis are not the same thing. Several years back, when I first heard about low-carb diets, I was skeptical, and frankly, when I heard that my close friend's mother was trying the Atkins diet, I was worried for her. However, after understanding the biochemistry behind it, I started doing the paleo diet. I felt great in general, had a better physique with less effort, and much more stable energy levels. The downside was it got kind of annoying to have to plan my meals so much, so I would cheat a lot here and there. The benefits of fasting. Even after people were in environments where they could eat much more frequently, the concept of fasting for health benefits has been around for quite some time. An Egyptian pyramid inscription from around 3800 BC reads, "Humans live on 1/4 of what they eat. On the other 3/4 lives their doctor." Plato apparently fasted for greater mental efficiency. The Luther of medicine, Philippus Paracelsus, called fasting the greatest remedy. And Mark Twain suggested fasting to be more effective than any medicine. The Romans even found that they could cure people who were possessed with demons by shutting them in a room without food. To simplify an incredibly complex process, aging in essence is the result of cumulative damage to your DNA. Professor of genetics David Sinclair and his team found that not eating stimulates proteins called the sirtuins. These are responsible for DNA repair and have been identified as a key factor in longevity. Professor of neuroscience Mark Mattson at Johns Hopkins University showed how fasting promotes the growth of new neurons in the brain. This explains why fasting is linked to the prevention of neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. This information got me excited about intermittent fasting. With intermittent fasting, you're not eating for 16 hours of the day, which gives your body time to deplete the glucose stores and start burning fat, as well as reap the benefits discussed above. So many sources are pointing to the key here being that whether you are doing extended fasting, intermittent fasting, or simply eating less, you are giving your body a chance to deplete its glucose stores and dip into ketosis, leading to the health benefits we discussed. I was keen on the fact that I could get similar effects to paleo with more leeway in my diet. The problem with intermittent fasting was I found myself craving food outside of the 8-hour period, and I still had to be somewhat strict with what I ate, although of course not as strict as my 3 meals a day regimen. Upton Sinclair, who was born in the late 1800s and lived to the swell age of 90, published a book in 1911 called The Fasting Cure. The book was inspired by the personal accounts of 250 people who cured some ailment with extended fasting. The ailments range from colds, headaches, constipation to arthritis, valvular heart disease, and cancer. Dr. Alan Goldhammer spoke about how in 2012, a 42-year-old patient cured her cancer, stage 3 follicular lymphoma, with a 21-day fast. All this opened me up to try my first week-long fast, but I ended up quitting around the 4th day, even though I didn't feel particularly bad. While I missed my goal and I didn't really feel all that different afterward, over the next following days I started to notice something. I used to enjoy eating some refined sugar crap here and there, but after the fast I wasn't so interested. It was like it reset my eating preferences. Around this time I came across a book called Kufuku wa Hito o Kenkou ni Suru, by Dr. Yoshinori Nagumo. The title means Hunger Makes People Healthy, and it provides an incredibly compelling argument for limiting yourself to one meal per day. It touched upon many of the things I've talked about here, some things I didn't, and it dispelled some worries I had like malnutrition. Also, it was easy to trust him since he's 30 years older than me and looks younger than I do. I decided to try eating once per day for 2 weeks. For 3 weeks prior to starting, I had been showing my little sister around Tokyo while eating basically anything and everything that looked good. I started the Nagumo plan the day after she left, and the first 3 days were definitely the hardest. When the clock hit around 11 a.m., I realized I wasn't getting the joy from eating that I was used to around this time of day, and started really wanting to eat. My stomach didn't particularly hurt. It was the equivalent of not being able to play video games when getting home from middle school. Around 4 p.m. was when I was convinced that I was really hungry and needed to eat. Waiting another 30 minutes until 4:30 p.m. to eat was like pushing through a last set of squats. The next 2 days were slightly easier, and come the 4th day, I realized I wasn't looking at the clock thinking, only 4 more hours to go. A week later, I decided to put the diet to the test by doing a 50-kilometer bike ride to Atsugi from Tokyo. I hadn't been working out all that much, and a usual bike ride for me was about 3 kilometers. It was, unsurprisingly, difficult, but I never felt really physically weak. I had hunger pangs earlier than normal, but I didn't feel like I had less strength from a lack of food. This made me decide to stick with eating once per day. It's been a month since I started, and I feel great in general. My energy levels are very stable. I feel more focused.